What's up, everybody? Sodomike here. Today's video is going to be looking at some tips and tricks for getting started in New World, and most importantly, for getting a head start in New World. Things to look out for, things to do to help you progress ahead of your friends and enemies that I've kind of picked up from playing the closed beta and some of the preview events and some other things, and reading forums and watching streamers and all kinds of other things. So let's dive into it. Okay, the first section we're going to talk about is combat. One of the most important sections, obviously, as you're going to be in combat probably about half the time or more. So number one thing about combat in this game is you always want to, whenever possible, attack something from behind. Uh, it always crits, so if you're doing a crit build, you definitely want to be doing this, but in any case, you want to be doing this. If you're a tank, on the other hand, you want to make sure that you're keeping mobs' backs to your party, because your party's going to do a lot more damage hitting from behind. The one area this is super important, if you get really good at it, you will be a force, is in PvP. There's a lot of CC in this game, there's a lot of knockdowns and stuns and stuff, they're usually pretty short. If you can stun your enemy, get behind them, and do some damage, you're going to win most of your PvP battles, so keep that in mind. The second thing is PvP scaling. Now they've changed this a little bit since the closed beta during the open beta. There is some PvP scaling in this game, and if you don't know what that means, what it means is levels don't matter as much with PvP scaling. So someone who's 5 levels higher than you, you may actually be able to fight and beat. I didn't play the open beta because I'm saving all my energy up here for a couple weeks from now, but I did watch some streamers playing. There is still scaling, so if you and a friend are out there and you get jumped by a high level, don't just run. Try to take them out. You can actually win the fight if you try. In some cases, particularly if you have more than one friend with you, if it's like 3v1, etc. So play with a friend if you're flagged for PvP, and don't just run at the first sign of an enemy. So on the other side of that is, if you are playing by yourself, just be careful because you can get zerged by a bunch of low levels, and they can beat you. Again, this has been reduced a little bit for release, so we'll have to play around with it a little bit to get an idea of how many levels actually matter. There is still scaling in the game, but they did say that they reduced the amount of scaling. All right, the next thing is pick your weapon early. So with New World, you don't have classes. Basically, what you're doing is the weapon that you're using is your quote-unquote class. I say to choose it early for a number of reasons. Number one, it takes a long time to level up your weapon all the way, and the higher weapon level you have, the more likely you are to win in PvP. It's not necessarily the levels of the other player. That does give them some stats and stuff, but generally speaking, if you have your weapon leveled up and you have more weapon abilities, and those abilities have more passives attached to them, you are going to be a lot stronger than if you don't. So if you're constantly changing weapons, you're not going to have them all leveled up. That makes you inherently weaker no matter what level you are. So choose your weapon early. Continuing on with the weapon idea, there's a 2-weapon combo in this game. You can only hold 2 weapons. Try to choose 2 stats if possible. This one is kind of obvious, I guess. You want to min-max in these games typically. But the reason I bring it up is because the weapons that you're choosing do have primary and secondary stats, and you definitely want to try to make sure that if you're using like a great axe, for example, that you're using like a hatchet as a secondary, or maybe even like the spear, because these weapons they scale off of strength. So you really only want to be putting your attributes into 2 stats. You do have some options for different kinds of play styles. So if you're using an amber gem, for example, to be kind of like a paladin, you can go life staff and another weapon. And then with the amber gem, you don't have to put stats into a strength or a dex. You can just put it all into focus as your primary, and your secondary is typically going to be basically just hit points. So your primary stat is really important, and it depends what weapons you're using. You don't want to use weapons that scale off of different stats. Alright, so during the closed beta and before, you were running quicker with a weapon sheath. That's been changed now, so my tip and tricks here is actually not to sheath your weapon, but the exact opposite is pretty much never sheath your weapon because you're just going to be slightly more ready for combat and you don't run slower anymore. So keep your weapon out when you're running around. Okay, now we're going to talk about kiting. Kiting in this game is pretty difficult. Mobs rubber band pretty quickly. There's limited range, and even more so since the July patch notes. Um, if you're looking to do some kiting, you're better off using something like an ice gauntlet, which just slows mobs a lot, than trying to like shoot them from really far and kill them before they get to you. Mobs move extremely fast when being pulled in this game as well. And in the expeditions, they've actually changed a lot of the kiting stuff that's going on here. So if you're a big kiter, just beware that that's probably not going to work very well for you in this game. And quite frankly, if you try, you're going to end up taking even longer to kill stuff because they're just going to keep resetting. All right, so now talking about the secondary weapon. Typically, what I found in this game is, especially if you're using something like the life staff, you don't necessarily want to kill mobs with your life staff. So what you should be doing with your secondary weapon is tagging the mobs once. It's pretty easy to use it to pull mobs, for example, and then switch to your primary weapon and kill them. The EXP you get for your weapons will actually be split 50-50 between the two weapons you use to kill the mob. And also, if you're seeing other people kill mobs, you can tag their mobs and steal some of their EXP, which is kind of a dick move, but they're going to be doing it to you, so you can also do that to level up your second weapon. Alright, the second topic we're going to talk about is crafting and harvesting. Now, a lot of people have different feelings on this. I've seen a lot of streamers say, don't level up your harvesting and crafting, wait till you're a higher level, you have better tools, and it goes quicker. I wholeheartedly disagree with this. Here's the thing: if you get really high level before you start crafting and harvesting, uh, you're going to be in an area where you can't harvest anything. You're going to have to go back to the beginning areas. You're going to be just grinding for the sakes of grinding, and it's going to be really frustrating and really not fun for you. My advice is harvest as you go. It's a great way to make money for starters. You can keep your eye out for something like slivers of adderstone, which come from just basic rocks. And those items actually increase bag space when you're crafting bags, so they're hugely valuable. It's called extra pockets. So I definitely things like that can make you a ton of money. It's a lot easier in this game to just kind of do things as you go. Yeah, you're not going to have as much pack space and stuff. I'm not talking about sitting there for like half an hour chopping down trees, unless you're multitasking with work or something. That gets really boring and stuff. But pick up things as you go, a little bit here and there. And next thing you know, you'll be leveled up really, really nicely, and it doesn't necessarily overload you at all unless you're spending way too much time doing it. So definitely, in my opinion, harvest and craft as you go. Second thing is pick up corn and wheat. Okay, so these are used in cooking to make pastas and flours. Um, there's a lot of different things you can run into, like carrots and things that aren't as important. Corn and wheat. Never bypass corn and wheat. They are necessary in a lot of the cooking recipes, and people don't necessarily realize. And if you're new to the game, it's hard to know like which resources are more important than others. You can pick up cabbage and carrots and whatever, and like it's useful, but corn and wheat are the ones you definitely don't want to leave behind. All right, next, using Azoth. Um, Here's the thing. In my opinion, you get to a new benchmark. Say you're doing harvesting tools, and you get to the point where you're going to do a new set of harvesting tools. Uh, Use your Azoth to craft them, and be patient. If you craft something using Azoth that doesn't have the rolls that you want, honestly, sell it and go and grind some more until you get the perfect rolls or near perfect rolls for yourself, and sell everything else. I see a lot of people, I was selling tools recipes to people and they weren't giving me Azoth to craft for them. It's a huge mistake. You're guaranteed such better rolls when you use your Azoth, and you should basically never bypass this because the mats you're using are way too expensive to not maximize your output. So manage your Azoth that way. Make sure you have some. The vials of Azoth that you'll find, keep those in case you're buying something from somebody else. you can give them a vial of Azoth so that they can have Azoth to use to craft your item for you. So keep those. I don't think you should sell those, but if you're not interested in crafting or having anything crafted for you, maybe sell them. But otherwise, I'd say keep them. All right, this one's very annoying. I do have a section at the end of this video of like things they should change, and this is on there. Be careful when you're crafting because the crafting system defaults to your most expensive materials. I don't know why it does this. If you're making like a bag or whatever, it will pick like your rarest mats to make the bag instead of the basic mats by default. So that's completely ass backwards, Amazon. It makes no sense because those mats are not necessary and they don't even improve anything. And it will consume your best mats if you let it. And also, as far as crafting goes, if you're new to this game, you can craft from your storage. So it's not just what's on you, so you have to be really careful. Anything in your storage can be utilized at the crafting bench, which is super great for utility, but it can, in conjunction with this one, really burn you because you have your nice mats in there and it's going to default to them and burn them. So just be careful. All right, special crafts. So there's recipes and things that you can get when you're doing crafting. Again, you want to use Azoth when you're using these. Everything's bind on equip, so make sure you have what you want. That's kind of what I was mentioning earlier. Craft multiples of everything and sell whatever isn't perfect for you. So my recommendation, we'll use harvesting for example again. Um, if you're doing a harvesting tool, your number one choice should be luck. Then number two should be yield. Then Azoth gain, and then generally gear score. Things that are pretty much useless are increased experience because once you cap it out, that's completely useless. Increased durability, which is really, really bad rule. Who cares? Just repair it. But yeah, you want to prioritize luck and yield. If you get a harvesting tool with luck and yield on it, then the third stat doesn't matter at all, really. Obviously, if you could get Azoth on there as well, that'd be great. But luck and yield is what you're after on those. Okay, I got a little mini section here on fishing. A couple things for fishing. Don't salvage your fish. It's tempting to salvage your fish. The town quests quite often require just basic fish, not the salvaged version. They have nerfed the EXP on town quests, so this one isn't as important anymore, but my recommendation is don't salvage your fish until you need to salvage them for something, if you need oil or whatever. Keep your fish whole. Second thing is fishing hotspots. So they fixed some of this where they weren't showing up properly. Basically, what's going on here is if you look at the water, there's going to be these little swimming fish in kind of like a little circle. And if your if your fishing line ends where those circle of fish are, you are going to get way better fish, and you're going to get chests that have gems in them, and all kinds of good shit. You can usually get 4 or 5 casts per hotspot. They also catch way quicker, so just be careful of that. You don't want to, fall asleep while you're fishing a hotspot and miss the reward. So definitely keep an eye out for those. Hit them when you can, and don't let other people take them if you can manage that. As far as the fishing rods go, your max range will give you better fish. So it's interesting because you can throw a really long line into really shitty water and somehow it's better, but it's just kind of the way the mechanic works. So maximum range is the best for getting fish. Better rods will also have a higher max range. One of the things you want to look out for a rod is a lucky rod. Uh, I personally like stacking things, so some of the stats on fishing rods can be, better luck during the day. Some people like fishing rods that have better luck during the day and better luck during the night. I'd rather carry 2 rods personally, one for day fishing, one for night fishing, and have everything on there attached to it be for a specific time of day rather than some of both. But I kind of leave that up to you guys. Okay, now we're going to talk about some general tips and tricks. Okay, so here's the thing with shields. People assume that shields are stat sticks. They're not. Um, Shields will increase your weight if you have them equipped, and they can push you from light to medium, medium to heavy. which has some penalties on it, by the way. So if you're not using sword and shield, do not equip a shield. It does not help you in any way. All it does is make you heavier. There's absolutely no reason to equip a shield. The literally the only reason why I might equip a shield is if for some reason I didn't want to salvage it on the spot and wanted to reduce my pack weight. It'll move the pack weight from your pack to your carry weight. But if you equip it, it's gonna be bound to you. So there's absolutely no reason in my mind why you even bother with that. Maybe if you found a really good shield and you were planning on going sword and shield or something like that, you might equip it. But generally speaking, equipping a shield is not worth your time. It's not a stat stick. Okay, now I want to talk about using the broker. When you go to use the broker, it defaults to a 14-day posting. I highly, highly, highly recommend you don't use that. Um, Maybe if you found something that's really amazing and you have it up for a huge, huge price, I might do that, and even then, I might not do that. But don't sell anything for more than 3 days. List things for 3 days because I guarantee you, particularly at the beginning, if they don't sell in 3 days, they're outdated and nobody will want them anyway. You only get 100 listings. So if you start listing everything for 14 days, you'll hit your 100 cap and you won't be able to sell anything, is another reason. Third reason is the longer you list it, the more it costs you. So there's absolutely no reason to list stuff for 14 days. Price it to sell, list it for 3 days. If it doesn't sell, consume it, ditch it, salvage it, whatever. But don't list for 14 days. Potions. Okay, so people spend a ton of money buying potions off the broker. Don't do this. Use the faction vendor. The faction vendor potions are better and they're way cheaper because it takes faction rep instead of your coins. Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. A lot of people don't realize that you can buy potions from the vendor, the faction vendor, so do that. And on the other side of that, if you have high sup and stuff, sell potions to people because they're gonna buy them and you'll make lots of money. Okay, this next one's really cool. They in the open beta patch notes, they did make these fast travel points easier to find in a couple of different ways. I haven't seen that in action yet, so maybe it's a little bit easier. But if you're looking for fast travel points in the zone you're in, zoom in. Okay, so zoom into your map. You'll be able to see an area of interest on the map that looks like this, and guaranteed that's a fast travel point. So it's a cool way to kind of cheat if you're not aware of where the fast travel points are and you want them in the zone that you're playing in. You can find an outline in the map that looks like this, and you can go there and that'll be a fast travel point for you to discover. Okay, now I want to talk about storage management. This game is big on storage management. I don't just mean your pack. I'm talking about your town storage. So my recommendation is that you choose a town for something like alchemy and cooking, and you put all of your alchemy and cooking in that storage in that town. It's not entirely a perfect strategy because you need a crafting bench that's a certain level at a certain point, and so ideally you would like to identify which towns are going to be, have the best alchemy and cooking stations for you to store your alchemy and cooking stuff. But in general, I recommend one town for alchemy and cooking, and then you do a primary and secondary for everything else. So if you're planning on um, doing a lot of smithing or whatever, same thing. Uh, the bottom line here is that you're not going to be able to store everything in one town, and you wouldn't want to anyway, because as I mentioned, people who run those towns can level up the crafting stations. Generally speaking, everyone is going to try and be the town that people use for different things. So if somebody already has a really high tailor, that faction or sorry that company is probably not going to try and compete with that. They're going to go and upgrade their smelter or whatever to get miners there, right? So uh, definitely you want to move your stuff where you can. There's a lot of ways to fast travel in this game. So if you have a house, if you tie yourself to an inn, etc., try to centralize those kinds of things so you can move materials around to the right towns less painfully and without costing you too much Azoth. Okay, picking housing. People don't always understand that what the housing situation is when they start a new MMO. Some MMOs have first come first serve housing. New World does not. Houses in New World are instanced, which means every single person on the server can own the same house. Okay? So you don't have to rush to get a house. Try to be tactical on where you place your house, like I mentioned earlier. You want to have fast travel points around the map that are cheap or free to use. Depending on what you're doing, you can kind of get everywhere cheaply. You can always travel between towns when you're in a town, but it costs you a bunch of money, or a bunch of Azoth rather. So if you have your cheap or free fast travel points centralized, then you can get anywhere for less cost. You just have to fast travel twice, right? So keep that in mind. You don't have to rush for houses if you need money for something else. You can always get them later. The last thing I'll say about housing is that there's a discount if your company owns um, the territory. So it's a good idea to kind of have your house in areas where um, your company owns, if possible, and your faction owns in particular, because you can fast travel items between storages that your faction owns. So kind of point of war in this game is to help crafters with that. So keep that in mind. All right. Focus on your story quest. Keep it at your level or near your level. So the story quest, the main story quest, it'll be at the top of your journal on the map. It's in bright yellow as opposed to the kind of orangey, darker yellow that are just the side quests. Okay, so you want to keep it near at your level. It's how you get the Azoth staffs. It's how you get a bunch of stuff that's important to you. It's how you get into expeditions for free. So this is probably the number one reason why I like to keep it near my level, because if you get a free entry to an expedition when you're 10 levels past that expedition, it's kind of useless. Meanwhile, the expedition gear is really good and probably about 5 to 10 levels twinked from open world gear. So as soon as you can get in expeditions and get that expedition gear, you're going to be a lot better off. All right, faction rank. Last one in the general section here. So upgrade when you hit your cap on faction rank as soon as possible. Um, they were really easy and soloable, despite the game telling you they weren't in the closed beta. The open beta patch notes made open world elite mobs and bosses way harder, so we'll have to see if they're still soloable. But you're basically wasting faction rank when you hit your cap, unless you go and do the upgrade quest. So as soon as you hit your cap, go and do your upgrade quest, continue to grind faction. Okay, the last subject I want to talk about in this video is changes that should be made to New World. This is just kind of, I guess it's not a tip or a trick, it's just kind of like a what sucks and what should be changed here based on these. Number one is the crafting defaulting to lowest tier items, not the highest tier items. I talked about that earlier. I'd love to see if you could actually see people in your faction who are flagged for PvP. If you're flagged for PvP, you can tell who's flagged on the opposing factions, but not on your same faction. Why? This makes no sense. Like, you should be able to know if you have an ally who's flagged near you so that you can, run somebody who's wrecking you over to them to get their attention, etc., to play with each other just in general, who you may not be grouped with. Add a log so you can check what was sold, who killed you with what you looted, etc. A lot of times in this game, you're busy doing stuff, and you've sold something and you don't know what it is. Somebody killed you and you don't know why. I would really like to see a log in the game where you could check and see what's happened to you recently. So I would love to see that in the game. If you kill a mob that's related to a quest to have, it should prompt you for tracking that quest. In a non-invasive way, it shouldn't be like, hey, do you want to track this in the middle of your screen? But sometimes you see mobs that have stars next to them, meaning that they're for a quest, and you have no idea what quest they're for because you have to like scroll through your journal to find it. So it'd be nice if you killed something that was related to a quest for it to kind of identify the name of the quest somewhere on the screen. Be like, this is for this quest that you've had progress on in case you want to go check out the details of it. I'd like to see that. Optimize fishing. Yeah. You know, I crashed about 20 times in the beta, and it was 100% of the time during fishing. Um, it's something to do with the sound file of the bobble landing in the lake or water, whatever. It crashed my game a lot. I've seen a lot of people crashing from fishing. Fishing needs an optimization change. I didn't see it in the open beta patch notes, and so I'm worried that that's going to still be in release. That needs to be fixed immediately. Optimized chat. Chat lag was horrendous. This is the worst chat lag I've seen in any game I've ever played. I've played hundreds of games. You would type something, and literally a minute or two would go by before it showed up in the actual chat. I don't know what's up with the chat servers, Amazon, but that needs some serious work. Show which quests allies also have. It would be really nice in your journal when you partied with somebody to see which other quests people in your party have that you have. You end up with like 100 quests in your journal. Okay, not that many, but a lot. And you don't know what your friends have. So you're like, do you have this quest? Do you have this quest? So it'd be nice to have, a toggle in your journal that shows other quests that people in your group have and which person has them. Uh, Melee and finishing players in PvP. This game, in a lot of circumstances, ends up running into the big chase game where people are going to lose a PvP fight, so they just like run away and you end up chasing them for like half an hour or leaving them. And same thing happens on your side if you're going to lose. You're motivated to try and run away and stuff. It's super annoying. It slows down the game. It makes the PvP less fun. They've done some stuff on this with like reducing your move speed if you've been hit recently, etc. But with the dodge and a couple other things, like it's quite often people just like hiding around with no health, and you're like trying to hit them with like a spear, or like if you don't have a ranged weapon, you're just trying to like cut down the angle on them. So it's really annoying. It's an annoying part of the game. I don't like it. I wish they would do some more on it. So throwing that in there. Expedition bosses bugging out on group white. So they figured this out between the closed beta and open beta. They fixed all the expedition bosses not respawning and not actually working and stuff. So hopefully that one's already fixed. Dies. Okay, so this game, I said this during the preview event, and I said it during closed beta, and I'll say it again. This game has the worst die system I've ever seen. The dies look like garbage. I don't know who decided on this. This was definitely an afterthought, but it's in their cash shop too. Nobody's going to be buying dies, or if they do, you're going to royally piss them off because the die looks fucking awful in this game. I've never seen a game have issues with this until now, and as somebody who likes to customize themselves, like dying will not be the way. It'll be buying a suit of armor or something that's an armor set. Don't use dies. Dies are terrible. I don't know why they did this. Dies need a major overhaul or straight removal because it's just the worst die system I've ever seen. All right, well that brings us to the end of the video, and thanks everybody for watching. If you like this or you have any other tips and tricks to share, please throw them in the comments below. Please hit me with a like or sub. Check out some of my other videos. There's one that I have with every weapon type and all the passives and stuff if you're looking to plan a build. Super happy to discuss builds and different kinds of weapon combinations if you're interested in that. Leave me a comment. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in New World.